brother. I'm Angela. Nice to meet you guys. If you're new, most of you I've seen before. My name is Angela. This is Jalen. We're going to be hosting tonight, and we're really excited for this portion of what we're doing. This is our artist spotlight. It is really important for us as creatives to see what God is doing in the kingdom through his kingdom sons and daughters, right? So this is what that segment is we get to highlight a kingdom creative who is advancing the kingdom, I'm going to say it again, the kingdom again, through their gifting, through their expression, through what they're called to. And so hopefully tonight you guys can get something out of it. And if it speaks to you, I know God is going to speak something amazing through our artist spotlight. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce her now. I want to go ahead and introduce somebody who is a part of this community, but is also just a friend, and we love her. She has been amazing to just watch her process. We've gotten to do life together. We've gotten to see what it's looked like for God to move into work within her expression. And I'm going to let her explain. I'm not going to say too much up here. So I want you to help me give a welcome to Miss Meghan Farmer. All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I wanted to keep the introduction a little short because I know that you're probably going to explain so much of what you do, and it's just awesome. I will say this, Meghan is in the fashion realm. She's looking stylish right now. I put on my best heels for you, Meghan, so I said...
I'm so impressed.
I said, we're doing fashion today. We're doing it. But she is in the fashion industry, and currently she does personal styling, right? And that started because you went on set and you saw some of the negative impacts, you could speak more to this, but the negative impacts maybe the fashion industry had on maybe people, on our earth. She's also into sustainability, so if you're into that as well, I know I am, you started to see those things, and you basically decided, I'm gonna do something about it, and that started with personal styling, and that's with the Considerary. So tell us a little bit about the Considerary and just how that came about.
Yeah, so as Angela said, I come from an on-set fashion background, which means when you see the pictures of the models wearing the clothes, somebody's had to pick those out, so I was that person. So did that for about 6 years, yeah, and still love that industry, still have a really big heart for that. It's a big ministry opportunity, but it was just around clothes all the time, around fashion all the time, and I just started to think more about where these were coming from, and started to be mindful of where my dollar was going when I was shopping. So started doing research, realized we've probably all heard the term fast fashion, realized how that was impacting not only our planet, but the people. And so I have a really big heart for justice, and when I realized that there were people behind the clothes that I made that weren't being paid a fair wage, that weren't being valued, that were potentially being trafficked, I couldn't turn a blind eye anymore. And so I started shopping more sustainably, more ethically for myself. And as I was in this fashion world, on set all the time, around fashion all the time, I would get compliments on my outfit, right? When you work in fashion, or just in general, you're like, oh, you look fly, that's a cute outfit, whatever. And I'd be able to say, oh, it's from this really cool ethical brand, or it's secondhand, or whatever. And people would comment back and say, oh yeah, that's really cool, but I don't know how to do that. Or I don't have time for that. Or that's really expensive, or that's like wearing a burlap sack, so I'm not interested in that. So I realized that people probably felt the same way I did. When they realized the atrocity, they were like, oh, I want to change, but I don't know how to do that. Yeah. And so I formed the Considerary. It comes from the word that I made up that says consider, because we consider the planet and the people who make our clothes before we purchase. So that's where that term came from. So personal styling, because a lot of times we make purchases, we shop before we develop personal style and figure that out. And so that's a whole nother thing that I'm super passionate about, is just helping people develop personal style and understanding why you dress the way you dress. It speaks to a lot of your identity and what you're trying to express and non-verbally communicate and all of that. So just realize that those two things were super important in tandem. And so started the personal styling thing.
So good, so good. Got something? Okay.
Yes, I heard your experience is a very spiritual experience. It's like you walk them through, you go in the closet and ask them, why is this color here? So I can't wait to experience it myself, I might cry a little bit.
You'll definitely cry. You will cry.
I receive it, especially if you pay for it. Check her out. The considerary. She got packages, y'all. So I love the fact that you're about sustainability. And I know that there's this new thing that is birthing in you that you're walking out, and that's a process that you're walking out called the Bright Factory. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, as many of you creatives in the room, you can never do too many things, right? You always have a new creative project that the Lord drops in you. So last year, 2020, I was doing a couple things at one time. So I had started visiting the local Fort Worth jail. I was visiting women who'd been affected by the sex industry and just loving on them, telling them Jesus loved them if they wanted me to, and or if they let me, and then just getting to just meet them. And I would hear a very similar sentiment over and over again. And that was, I just want to get out, I want my kids back, and I want to get a good job. And did some research and realized how hard it is to get a good job if you've been in jail or prison. And so that was on my heart, was thinking about that a lot, and then had actually started serving at Mercy Culture, helping with our merch. And so I was seeing these t-shirts that we were making, and I thought, where are these coming from? Where do we get our church t-shirts? Because this house, and I think a lot of churches that you guys come from, I know we're representing a lot of different churches, I think a lot of us care about people. If we're believers, we care about people being treated fairly, even if they're not a believer, that the Lord still wants them, the Lord still cares about them, even if they're in India and you don't see them, he still cares a lot about them. And so as I was serving on this team, I thought, okay, we may need to transition to more ethically made t-shirts so we can keep standing on this firmly, and just realized how hard it was to find a blank t-shirt, we call them t-shirt blanks in the wholesale world, how hard it was to find that t-shirt that you put the screen printing on, or you put your embroidering on, or whatever you buy at your local coffee shop or your church or your gym or whatever. There's t-shirts everywhere, right? So just seeing how hard it was to find that. So all these things I cared about kind of at one time, I was like, I should be a liaison. I should just introduce people to these ethical brands. It's kind of what I already do with my personal styling business. I should just tell churches about t-shirts that are good. Because there's a few companies out there, they're kind of sparse, but there's a few. I should tell people. And I felt Holy Spirit so strongly say, no, I want you to do it. It's like, oh, I am a fashion girl, but I don't know about manufacturing girl. That has not been in my repertoire. And so kind of just kept leaning into it, studying it, and the Bright Factory was born kind of at the intersection of all of those things. So the Bright Factory will exist to employ formerly incarcerated women to cut and sew wholesale t-shirts. So we're making quality t-shirts from sustainable fibers. So cotton sustainable because it's a natural fiber, and it means at the end of its life in your closet, it can decompose, as opposed to some other fibers that never leave the earth because they are plastic and they never decompose. No shame if you wear a lot of polyester. It's really hard to avoid. I'm wearing polyester right now. It's hard. So quality t-shirt, quality product made by women who deserve dignified jobs, deserve other chances to continue working. Every time I would talk to these women, if they ever asked me what I did and I said I worked in fashion, they would get so excited. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I mean, sometimes it's cool, but sometimes it's not that glamorous. And I realized that they had potential. They had all this potential. They are creatives that potentially, because of decisions made for them or decisions that they made out of desperation, that they didn't get the chance for this potential. I had all this privilege to be able to unlock the potential for my creativity, but they may not have had that opportunity. And how cool would it be for them to be a fashion designer, or for them to cut and sew and be in the marketing department? And I just am so excited for what these women will get to do, and we'll get to see their giftings and creativity.
And that's a part of what advancing the kingdom looks like in our creativity. So I just want to thank you, for saying yes to what God is doing in your life and asking you to step out on, because that's awesome. So you talked about justice being such a driver for even why you're starting the Bright Factory. And there are other injustices that happen in the fashion industry that honestly I didn't know about, and then you started telling me and I was like, I will stop shopping at Forever 21, But can you tell us, for some of us who don't know some of the injustices that are in fast fashion, can you just touch on some of those things and highlight that as well?
Totally. Okay, so I'm a little bit of a nerd about this, so I'm going to try to make it quick. But basically, fast fashion was introduced in the 90s, right? If you've heard the term fast fashion, will you raise your hand just so I know the people? Okay, fast fashion, let's break it down. You know the word fashion. Fast means it's produced really quickly and in really large amounts. So there's no shame in this conversation, but it's pretty much everywhere we shop. It's Target, it's Old Navy, it's even the like high-end designers, a lot of times that could be considered fast because it's made really fast. And so there was not a high standard put on the people who are making it, because we used to make stuff here in the US, and just because something's made in another country doesn't make it bad at all. There's less transparency for us because we can't be there. We can't walk into the factory. Like if you want to come to my factory in a few months, come on in. You can meet the ladies, you can see what we do, but that's a little harder if it's thousands of miles away, right? And so these big companies don't have as much oversight into the conditions. So that means that bad things can happen when there's not eyes on something. And so there's labor trafficking, there's sex trafficking, there's just general wrongdoing to the people who work in these garment factories. So in 2013, there was a collapse of a really big garment center it was called Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, and a lot of people died, and it was really, really sad. But one of the sadder things was the people that I worked there had been complaining. They'd been saying, hey, there's cracks in the wall, and you guys keep blocking the doors, and the fire exits are blocked, all these things that, like you and I, if that happened at our job, we'd probably quit, or we would file a lawsuit or something, but there wasn't a voice given to these people. And so a lot of them passed away in the collapse of this because they couldn't get out, because there were cracks in the building and ended up collapsing and they couldn't get out of these exits. And so just even that, like the valuing of human life is not there. There's not transparency, there's not the ability to know what's going on. And as people have become aware of that, a lot of brands and fashion companies are trying to make changes, but like many American companies, many companies in the world, not just America, they care a lot about money. And so money usurps people's value and their livelihood. And when you've worked in an industry, in any industry long enough, you can be so calloused. Like we even have to be careful not to be calloused of whatever the thing is. And so these people who are running these factories may have started off doing like the Lord's work. We don't know. You know, they may have like thought this is going to be a great thing. And then as money comes and people say, hey, if you don't hit this deadline, we're not going to use your factory anymore, which means that their family now will not eat. So it's just a trickle down effect. And so there's a lot that can happen when there's not transparency and when, honestly, when kingdom people aren't involved in it, because we don't get the opportunity to forge that place. But yeah.
That's beautiful. So, I mean, that's such a tragedy, and that's probably, anyone who can hear that story wants to instantly make a change, but it is beautiful to have kingdom people in that space. And so let's say that you're talking to somebody and they're like, okay, I'm in my industry, I hear what you're saying. Two-part question, have you always had maybe you've served the Lord for a long time, everyone doesn't know your testimony, but what was that like? Did you always serve the Lord in your creativity? And then when you decided to give your full yes to God, how did that shift what you were doing and your yes to God in your field?
So I definitely did not give my creativity to the Lord until recently. So I've walked with the Lord for a really long time and, done some of these and went off track for a while and came back and did all that. And so when I started my career, though, I was on track with the Lord. Knew him, loved him, but I still didn't invite him into it. It was like this thing where it's like, I give you everything, Lord. It's all yours. But you don't really care about the fashion industry probably, so I'm not going to invite you into the little parts of my day. So if my day for my previous job or when I was an on-set stylist involved styling outfits that day, but I was doing it to the glory of the art director. It was like, what does the art director want it to look like? I'm living in fear of the art director. I don't want to get fired. I want them to like what I styled instead of ever, and it was stressful. If you're serving man, it's so stressful. But if you're serving the Lord and know that he is working through your creativity, even in that way, even that he cares about what that model is wearing, because potentially you could have a conversation with that model where you get to talk about that piece of clothing and then you get to lead her to the Lord. He cares about all of those things. And so I was never inviting him into that. And I just think now about all the stress I could have avoided if I would have said, Lord, I cannot figure out what top to put with these pants. I know that seems so silly to you probably, but what do you want me to do here? What would have happened if I would have done that? And that's not to say he punishes for those things, but there's just so many missed opportunities I can look back on and think I could have made so much more impact, even in just my creativity, even in like my own ideas. His ideas are so much better than ours. Instead of me looking for inspiration from another fashion editorial, I could have said, Lord, what's your new idea? Like, you care about this. We only wear clothes because that is what you said, like Adam and Eve did something wrong and then we had to wear clothes, but like we have to wear them, it's a law, so like you care about that.
It's a law. It's a law.
It's a law. The most
It's a law.
sustainable thing you guys can do is not wear clothes, but it is not allowed, so next best thing, we'll talk about that, but don't be naked.
Personal styling. Next best thing is the personal
next best
styling.
thing.
Next best thing.
Personal styling, yeah. So yes, to answer that question, definitely didn't invite him in fully to that, and I can feel the weight of that now in comparison. And even in the personal styling business when I first started, didn't invite him into that either. Because it was just this thing of like, oh, you don't really care about that, I don't think. Like, it's fashion. You don't care about that. You care about lives and evangelism and me being on set and talking to someone about Jesus. You care about that. And he does. But he also cares about what I style someone in. And one of the first times I talked to Pastor Jasmine, and around the time that I got involved at AXL, she asked me just like basic questions to her. And to me, it was like, oh, why would you ask me that? She said, basically the same question, like, how do you use your creative expression for the kingdom, or something to that effect? Or like, how do you get to do things for the kingdom through fashion? And I like didn't know how to answer because I wasn't doing it. And I said, I pray for my clients before, and like had to like come up with something. And I think I probably told a story of, one time I was on set and this thing told some cool story about this person accepting the Lord, which was really cool, but it was not the daily inviting him into the creativity. And when you're a business owner, inviting him into the business owner and letting him be the CEO and making the decisions, like that involves a lot of loss of control. And same with inviting him into the creativity, because what if that art director didn't think it was a good idea? Like, what am I gonna do? Be like, oh, it was God's fault. like, no, I was still gonna honor him. And it was just, it was so much loss of control. I thought, oh, he doesn't want me to do that, and I don't need to do that. And then when the realization came, as being a part of this community, being a part of Mercy Culture, of just realizing he cares about all those things, and he wants those things, and just the shift that happens when you give it to him first. Because it's kind of like money. Like, we're still as a whole probably not great at being generous, but we know like the right verses and the phrases about being generous, and how like it's not even ours, it's his to begin with. And so you're just giving it back to him basically. You're just getting to be a steward. But that's creativity too. Like, it's not ours. Like, he gave it to us. Like, how wonderful that he gave us this gift, but we are required to just give it right back. And so when I started doing that, like we sing about these vessels being poured into, when you get the opportunity to be poured into creatively by the Lord, then just give it right back. And it's so much more rewarding than when I just kept it to myself and was burnt out and stressed and didn't have good ideas because I wasn't ever giving it back to him.
Yeah, that's so good. I just want to quickly note, when was that shift, and what happened when you decided, I'm giving this to the Lord?
Yeah. I think that was like a year and a half ago, maybe. So not that long ago. And I think the noticeable effects of the shift was, first of all, because I had transitioned to doing more personal styling, like really getting to invite the Lord in that space, and praying for them beforehand, praying before I go into a client's closet, but then also, like, Holy Spirit lives inside of me, I get to take him with me in the closet, and I get to like unpack some of the baggage that we carry with our clothes with them. But I do it not from this like judgmental, like, why did you buy that? You shouldn't wear this anymore. I get to like walk with them in peace and grace and say, okay, like, why did you buy this 10 years ago? And why do you never wear it? And we, like, the amount of times people cry is not because I'm like trying to get them to cry. It's because our clothing brings things out of us. It's it's the thing we've been wearing every day. Like, we have memories invested in that. We have experienced things in that. It's held certain like stages of life for us. Like, there's just so much that clothing carries. And so if I didn't invite the Lord into that, then that could be the most callous, like, and just overlooked part of what I get to do. Of I would be making cute outfits, but then they would miss the key to the identity that the Lord's trying to reveal in them. That like, oh, you look cute today, but like, is it speaking to what the Lord has called you to be? Are you expressing outwardly what you're feeling inwardly because of your daily encounter? Like, if you're not getting to do that, then why am I even doing anything? Like, fashion doesn't matter if it isn't to glorify the Lord, and that's a really hard thing to wrap your head around, but like, he cares about what you wear. because he cares about everything. And so if I didn't invite the Lord into that, my client experiences would be awful. They'd be like, oh yeah, she made me get rid of a bunch of stuff, but I don't really know why, or like she's making me wear this really whack thing, but like I guess this is cute now. Like it is a process of figuring out you and your relationship with the Lord and the identity, and getting to do that with people who aren't believers looks different, but it's still just as powerful, because then they get to ask questions of like, why did you ask me that? Or why are you acting like that? Or what is that? And it's just a really cool thing that the Lord gets to do when you invite him into that space.
I'm just gonna leave some space for that. That was a lot. You touched on a lot there, especially with the fashion industry, and it has its stereotypes of being vain and just very prideful, and it's just all about material things. What would you say to the person that feels that tug towards fashion, that is a believer, that's a son and a daughter, and they wrestle with the thought of, I don't know, like you kind of mentioned it before, it's like, I don't know how this will advance the kingdom of God. What would you say to your sibling in the faith in this moment right now in this time?
So I would say what my mom said to me when I was like 12, when I started getting really involved in fashion and cared so much about it, and was reading all of the magazines and was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And she was not into fashion, and she's like, I don't know what to do with this daughter, but I know that she's into fashion, so I got to figure out how to direct her so she doesn't become vain or materialistic or all these things. And she said, if you're going to be in fashion, you've got to find a way to make it help and not hurt. And so you're like 8, 12, whatever it was. I'm like, okay, Mom, whatever. But stuck. So moms keep saying those things because it sticks. And so later in my career, it was there. It was like I definitely got materialistic. I definitely got vain. But it was almost this like shielding, because I knew that there had to be a different way, because she'd kind of called that out of me at an early age. And so I think by being able to rely on the Holy Spirit inside me, I didn't have to go the route that a lot do, because it's a super, not just materialistic and vain, there's a lot of insecurity because there's not Jesus. When there's not Jesus, there's not security. And so much that is comes out, the rivalry, the competitiveness, the jealousies, the backstabbing, and just unkindness is because of insecurity, because they've put their security in this job. This is all they have is fashion. But when all you have is not fashion, you can take a step back and it's okay. Like it's okay if you didn't get that one job you wanted, or it's okay if that outfit didn't kill the way you wanted it to, because that's not where your security is, and you just get to pick up the next day and do the next thing. So I would say, find a way to make fashion help and not hurt. And that doesn't mean start a factory employing formerly incarcerated women for everybody. That can mean make sure you invite the Lord into it. That can mean don't let it be your identity, because it can really easily become your identity. And that's still a struggle. I still have to not be like, I'm a fashion stylist first. Like I am a daughter first, and then I'm a wife, and then I'm a sister, and then I'm a friend, and then down the line I'm a fashion stylist, and it's really cool, but it is not my identity. And when it becomes your identity, you're done. Like there's just
So good. So good. You brought up the Bright Factory just a minute ago. I want to talk a little bit about you stewarding that word. People don't know in this room, so I'm going to elaborate what I'm saying. A few months ago, actually over a year ago now, there was a moment where we have these things you guys saw. It's called Squad Night, and we got to pour into Meghan and one other person that we love so dearly. I don't know if she's here, Miss Erlene, in the room, and we got to pour into you guys, and you guys basically came together and stewarded a word that was given that night. And ultimately, you guys have done other things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was the Bright Factory birthed around that time? Okay, was it birthed there? No. Okay, it was birthed around that time. So God was speaking. I just had to make sure. Okay, but God was speaking, and so to watch you even unfold and walk out your yes to God has been such a beautiful process. For somebody who has maybe gotten words over their life, or God has spoken to them clearly about what they're, or even if it's not as clear, but about what they're called to or what He's asking them to do, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them? Because you have been doing it for now over a year, and it's going to launch in
hopefully this fall.
Okay, I didn't want to put it. I was like, I don't want to say a date, but okay, cool. Yeah. So that question.
So that was an incredible night. Like Angela said, it was already a seed of an idea the Lord had already told me about that I was supposed to do it. But I was kind of talking about it. I was kind of telling people, but also terrified of what it meant because, once again, not the manufacturing girl. So was being slow, but I revealed it to Pastor Jasmine, and so she made sure to reveal it to a whole community so that they could be brought into it.
Come on.
And kind of tricked me into being there, but it's okay because it was worth it. And it just the Holy Spirit moved, and people said some really incredible things, and I got to invite a lot of this community into it, which can be scary. And I think we talk about that a lot at AXL, is inviting people into the middle and not just to the finished product. And that has been crucial for me because even just having people ask about it, it's not like this shame of like, how's it going? Are you far along? It's more of like, they're so excited. They just want to know progress. And so that gets me excited, and it makes me remember why I'm doing it. Because they are like, oh, have you talked to any of the women? Are you doing this thing? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm excited because God gave me this, and this is good, even because it gets hard. It's hard to start new things. It's daunting. It's not something I've ever done before. What was your question? Oh, stewarding.
Stewarding the word.
Yes. Yeah. So something that I've learned at Mercy Culture, so if you go here, you've heard this, but if you don't, you do not, maybe have not, but when you get a word, a prophetic word, a word of knowledge, that you have to partner with prophecy. And so I didn't hear that till I was here, and the Lord can speak through somebody and give you this amazing thing and drop it down. But then if you're like, cool, do it, God.
Right.
You gotta lean into it. You've got to pray into it. You've got to ask, what did that actually mean? You have to write it down and keep going back to it and say like, okay, I want this for my factory. I'm believing this for this. What do you want me to do to actually make this happen? Instead of it just being like, you spoke from the heavens and now it will happen. Like sometimes He just does stuff. A lot of times He just does stuff. But most of the time He wants to invite us in, and that's that opportunity to invite us in, to pray into it, to ask other people to pray into it, and so that He gets the glory at the end of the day. You get to be like, I leaned into it with the Lord, and He kept telling me this, and this is what came out of it. And just being willing to continue to invite community and people into that. And then being patient. I'm not very patient. And so I struggle with that. I struggle with like, Lord, you said this like 3 minutes ago, and it hasn't happened yet. So are you even good? But it's true.
Yes, we've all been
and so
there.
it's like being willing to wait. Waiting time is not wasted time, even though it feels like it. And so being willing to sit in the waiting and let Him do what He needs to do, and you just continue to say, I'm ready. Tell me what you want me to do. I partner with you. Tell me what you want me to do.
I just want to say, as I've watched you, like you embodied that so well. I've seen you bring people into the process with you. I've seen you celebrate others in their endeavor. I've seen you serve the house with your gift, the house that the Lord has brought you to in the church and the body. And I think that's a very important component as well as sons and daughters kind of being planted somewhere. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, no, like it's the house of the Lord. But to know that you actually serve the house of the Lord as well as you're doing your thing as well, I think it's very, very important to be planted somewhere. And that's one of the things, isn't it great? Planted somewhere. I had to, y'all. It was green. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Right here. But yeah, you've been so planted in the house as well as bringing. Y'all love that. See, y'all laughing at it still. Wow, that was a good one, y'all, wasn't it? No, but I just honor that in you, especially with fashion, it's like you said, it's so easy to be like, no, this is my idea. No, this is the thing that the Lord gave me. But it breaks the barriers off of those also that are in that field to be like, oh, this is collaboration over competition. This is a relationship over opportunity. Like our drivers, our unique characteristics here at AXL, and so we get to walk those out day to day. And so being able to see you and other people in the room, even like Jalen Renzo, and there's other fashion people in here as well. Chris Patrick, I see you, man. Just literally go after God with fashion, and to know that it's literally God is really raising up sons and daughters to endow people in garments for His glory. And I think you kind of spoke on it. It's just like there's an importance to what we put on. There's a weight to what we put on. Think about it in the Bible when he talks about certain garments and how they were woven and the certain threads that God has spoken. And so just like what you're doing with styling, you're like, the Lord gives you colors, I'm pretty sure, and He gives you patterns and He gives you these things. And so I think it kind of speaks more to the importance of why fashion also matters in the kingdom of God.
So good. That's good. So good. We could keep going. We were 11 minutes over. Hey, man, it was good, though. It was worth it. I just want to do a little quick plug, for people to follow you, and just follow along on your journey, because it is important what you're doing. And I think beyond just personal styling, you are literally changing lives one closet at a time, Did it? Okay, that was just me. Okay. But you are changing lives. It is. I'm being funny, but that it is real. And honestly, like I've said, just since knowing you, I've even changed how I've shopped. I love coming to you. I thrifted this. This is a real thrift, y'all. This is real.
Clap it up.
Yeah. But you're literally you impact people with what you do, and your story, your process. So where can we follow you? How do we keep following along to the story that is unfolding right now with you?
So my website is www.theconsiderary.com. So it's the consider, like the word consider, ARY. And so at the Considerary, and then same with Bright Factory, at the Bright Factory. Love for you to join the email list. That's where I update the most of what the progress is looking like. So the goal is that we would crowdfund later this year and get that thing going and get people in some jobs. And you guys can all come visit the factory hopefully in a few months.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. I love it. Pull your phones out, follow it now. I will check with you after service and make sure you're following her. No. Also, she will be out there after tonight. You have a booth out there. You can connect with Meghan, plug in, meet with her. If something was literally just rumbling in your spirit, I would just literally say, go talk to her. Get connected with her and see what the Lord wants to do and get planted. Well, let's give one more time for Meghan Farmer.